The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Welcome into an all-new edition of the Belly Up Fantasy Live football show on the Belly Up Sports Network. It is July, and that means we are just that much closer to fantasy football drafts going crazy over the next couple months, I suppose. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, some fantasy football. We're talking quarterback studs and duds. We're talking about the most recent trades that went down in the NFL. We've got some read option going on for you, and of course, some rankings to talk about. I'm Vince Stover, host of the Sports Stove Football Show. I am joined by the stud and the dud. You can decide which one's which. Kevin Wilson and Brian Germinaro. Hey guys, how you doing?
I'm good. You?
Awesome. Kevin, how about you?
I'm doing extraordinarily well. As I mentioned, we got some rain out here in Texas today. Temperatures came down a little bit, so we're liking life right now.
Liking life. I like it.
Nice.
I hope I saw somebody got suspended from a baseball park. I was sure hoping it wasn't Kevin. It ended up not being him. So
no, I'm good. So
should be good to go from there for sure.
Great story though. Be great content. Kevin got suspended from a baseball stadium. Do 20 minutes on that.
Maybe on another show. All right, we are talking fantasy football, so let's get into it today. We've got some great topics to discuss. Let's get things started with segment number one. We call it the lead block. All right, for the lead block today, we are talking quarterback studs and duds. We have turned the page. We talked all last month about dynasty fantasy leagues. Now we are getting into the redraft leagues, and the rest of our focus, we'll have an episode or a topic here or there on dynasty, but really focusing on redraft stuff now as we're heading into the major draft season for the upcoming season. And so we're talking quarterbacks pretty much anytime we're talking rankings of any kind. We're talking about PPR stuff as well, to keep that in mind for people. Someday we'll talk about PPR and half PPR and non-PPR, and I just can't believe people don't do PPR stuff. But nonetheless, that's for another day. So let's talk about quarterbacks, though. And we did this over a few times with our dynasty rankings and studs and duds. We're talking about this season, the 2025-2026 fantasy football season. And so quarterback studs and duds, I think the guys have two each. So let's start with a stud, and Brian, we'll let you kick things off here. Quarterback stud for this coming season.
So my first stud is Justin Herbert of the Chargers. Was a QB 14 last year, but he spent the first 6 weeks with various ankle and foot injuries. During that time, he was quarterback 28. Those what held his numbers back. After he got healthy, he was, the Justin Herbert we're all used to seeing. They brought in more receiving targets for him this offseason, so that should expand the passing plays and the volume. And I don't think Herbert gets enough credit for it. He's coming off a career high in rushing yards last year with 306. I know that's not a crazy number, but it shows he does have some rushing upside, and maybe he's athletic enough that he could, rush for 300, 400 yards a season and get you those extra points here and there. So give me Herbert.
I'm right there with you, Brian. I think we're looking at breakout year for Herbert this year 2 in the system. Offense is better. The offensive line is better. There's some wide receivers still a little bit of a question mark, but overall, I like that one a lot. We're going to be talking about that more on Thursday night. So tune in for that. Kevin, reaction to Justin Herbert as a stud?
Well, Brian, I'm right there with you, as I've got him as my stud as well.
There we go.
And I have him ranked right around 11th or so overall. And if you're in a 10-man league, that means that you can hold off just a little bit and still wind up with the QB1. And the most amazing stat of all when it comes to this guy, he threw just 3 interceptions a year ago. 3.
Wow.
That's unbelievable to me. And I think you're right, Vince. Year 2 in this system is going to be a huge help for him. And I see him getting back to where he was throwing for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. 3 interceptions is not going to happen again. But he has shown that he can certainly control that side of things, unlike some other quarterbacks. But I am absolutely big on Justin Herbert this year.
Yeah, I've got him 11 also, Kevin. My rankings haven't posted yet, so I might change that. But right now, I got him at 11 also, so I like that for sure. All right, Kevin, so you both have Herbert as a stud. Let's go with the second stud then, Kevin. Who do you have?
Well, I've been beating the drum and on the bus so far for Mr. Jordan Love, and I see no reason to get off of that, even though we are in PPR. And he's ranked right around in the 16th area. And that's just crazy talk to me. And if you talk about value, this guy, let's say that he stays right around that 16th spot. So even if you're in a 12 quarterback or 12 person league, you can get this guy a little bit later and build yourself your wide receivers and your running backs room. And I really like how they cut down the number of sacks that he had from 2023 to 2024. He dealt with some injuries a year ago. He's healthy right now. I expect that's going to stay that way. I like his offensive weapons that he has surrounding him. And he's certainly aware of his coach and how he wants things run. So I see absolutely no reason to step off of the Jordan Love bus, and I'm not going to do that because I think this guy can be a super value going into this year.
Yeah, Fantasy Pros has him at 17. I look at that too. I go Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, those kind of guys that you can get after everyone already has a quarterback. That's kind of crazy. Now, I'm in leagues with Packer fans, so that'll never happen. But nonetheless, I'm with you, of course, on Jordan Love. And I think even though the wide receiver situation is harder when it comes to drafting Packer wide receivers in your fantasy drafts, Jordan Love's going to throw them no matter who catches them. So a lot of potential there for sure. Brian, first of all, quick shout out from your co-host, Nate.
What's up, Nate?
Appreciate that very much.
The legend.
Nathan, the most improved fantasy baseball player last season, and now he's in the playoff hunt this season. Tune in on Sunday nights about that. Sorry, moving on. Brian, Jordan Love thoughts, and then you can have your second stud as well.
Kev, great minds think alike. I had Jordan Love as my stud too, so we're in lockstep with that. Everything you said, I love the way he played last year. I love the addition of Matthew Golden. Even if he's not the all-world wide receiver we think he is, he's going to be, demanding pressure. He'll probably get the cornerback one, which will leave Jalen Reed in more favorable matchups. And I forgot the exact stat, but something that Jalen Reed and Jordan Love was like one of the most consistent fantasy connections of all in last year. Something like they always had like the most yards per game. Basically what it was saying is those two are really effective when they're on the field together. So if I can get at worst, more favorable matchups for him, I'll take that all day. And I'll leave for more points for Jordan Love.
I like it. I like it very much. I'll throw in one more name just for the fun of it. I mentioned it earlier, Dak Prescott. I think he's one of the more underrated fantasy quarterbacks. Now, the big thing is, can he stay healthy? But when healthy, he puts up a lot of points, and now you're adding George Pickens to that, that weaponry there for Dallas too. CeeDee Lamb obviously scores well, so I like Dak Prescott a lot, and usually I think there's a lot of value in Dak Prescott also. So I think Fantasy Pros had him at 14, but yeah, I like that one too. So all right, let's go to duds then. Let's see if we agree on these or not. Kevin, kick us off with duds.
Well, in Dynasty, I had Justin Fields as my guy that I was questioning, and I'm going to continue to do that here because unbelievably enough to me, I've seen him ranked. He was in Dynasty at 7, which, okay, I'm not buying that, but it's more justified, I think. But he's also ranked by Athlon at number 7 in redraft. And there's absolutely no way I'm buying that whatsoever. You're telling me you're taking Justin Fields over somebody like Baker Mayfield or Bo Nix or the guys that we just talked about? That's crazy talk to me. I am not going to use a draft pick on a guy like that who is what exactly has he done other than run the football? And I know that's got some value to it, but I don't buy that as being an overall package. I don't buy the Jets. I know they got Garrett Wilson, but other than that, I'm not buying the Jets this year. I'm not buying Justin Fields this year. So there's zero chance this guy is going to be on my fantasy team.
I think Justin Fields will be on almost all of my fantasy rosters this year as the second quarterback, as QB2.
A second quarterback, we can discuss that. But as a QB1, and that's all you have is one quarterback, per team.
Yeah,
I am out.
I got some hope in there for old Justin Fields, but granted I will not put all my eggs in that basket. I promise you that for sure. Brian, thoughts on Justin Fields?
I think Kevin's got my computer bugged because I had Justin Fields as my dud too. And I think I said this last week on the show. I love Justin Fields from a non-fantasy perspective. As you know, the Jets bring in a quarterback. I think he's a good fit there. But that's the thing. I think will be a game manager and bring stability to the Jets quarterback situation. I don't see that having much fantasy success. Garrett Wilson's nice, but outside of that, he doesn't really have much established talent to throw to. How much is that rushing upside going to be there? How much are the Jets going to want him to run? A lot of question marks. I think he brings stability, which is something the Jets don't have, but that won't translate to fantasy success.
Yeah, there's a little bit of the unknown, of course, with the Jets right now because you have a new coaching staff, and you say, well, it's Aaron Glenn. He's from the Lions, so it's going to look like this. Well, not necessarily, because Aaron Glenn was the defensive coordinator versus the offense coordinator. Now, the guy that's there, Tanner Eggstrand, is the offensive coordinator. I don't know enough about him to make an educated guess on what things are going to look like. I know he worked for Jim Harbaugh, and if you work for Jim Harbaugh, you're typically going to be run heavy, and so you're going to definitely see that aspect of it come. What I like about Justin Fields, what gives me hope about Justin Fields, is there is that ability to make plays with his legs. I love the Mason Taylor draft pick. I love Garrett Wilson being there too. The rest of the receiver core really scares me. There's not a whole lot there. Alan Lazard, even when he was on the Packers.
Let's not get into that.
About 10 weeks. So
yeah, that's duds for wide receivers. Josh Reynolds came in from Jacksonville. They drafted a kid in the 4th round, Arian Smith. Malachi Corley from last year, 3rd round pick. There's just not a whole lot of weaponry there. So some of it makes me think, well, if they succeed, it's going to be in a large part to Justin Fields. And maybe that means more rushing. Maybe that means more, rushing touchdowns. I don't know. That's where I have the hope in him. But I do agree, Brian. I think you made a great point last week and again this week with the NFL real life. It makes sense. It's a good thing. It makes them better than they were last year. Fantasy wise, though, is what we're talking about. So we'll see. We'll see how that one plays out. All right, Brian, who's your other dud?
This might come as a little bit of surprise, but I have Caleb Williams. I've seen this guy ranked as high as the quarterback 10 in fantasy this upcoming season. I think he's getting a little overhyped. The Bears had a great offseason. Ben Johnson will do wonders. But to think that Williams, who was inconsistent last year, is going to have this amazing jump to be a top 10 quarterback, I have my doubts. The wide receiver core is kind of unproven. We don't know what Burden III is going to be, despite him being a 2nd round pick. Doomsday kind of struggled last year. We don't know what Loveland's going to be in this offense. Then you have him thrown to DJ Moore, who took a step back next year. We don't know if that's going to be a trend or a 1-year blimp. And Cole Kmet. So I think there's a lot of question marks to immediately think he's going to make this great jump. As good as Ben Johnson, as good as I think Williams can be, I think top 10 is a little bit of a stretch.
Do you see Williams as a year away?
Yeah, I can see maybe 2 years being the top 10 quarterback. This is a year he kind of starts to put together, and then next year, it's a better investment in dynasty rather than a redraft lead.
Yeah, I have to be careful because my dad, when we talk about the Bears on our show, he doesn't say anything nice. So I have to think through things a little bit more when it comes to the Bears, of course. And I think the Bears I think they're going to be 3rd in the division this year, which would be an upgrade over 4th in the division. So I think Caleb Williams will have a big part with that. Ben Johnson, I think, will have the biggest part in that. So I'm intrigued by that one. Kevin, thoughts on Caleb Williams?
Well, I thought I was going to go the other way for a minute, and I was going to put him on my studs area. But if we're talking number 10, that's a little rich. I like what Johnson can bring. I like the weapons that they're surrounding him. They had to make some moves on that offensive line so he wasn't going to get sacked 680 times. And add that all together, I think that's going to add up to some success for him. And when it comes to year two, you're a little leery of year two, but he didn't have that great a year one.
Yeah.
So maybe he could switch that around a little bit and go the other way. That's the way I think he's going to improve from last year. But number 10, I'm not buying that at all.
All right. Who's your other dud, Kevin?
Okay, so we're talking about there's a difference between real life and fantasy. And this might sound like blasphemy, but in fantasy, I'm going to go with a dud. It's Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
Okay.
Bold.
This is bold. I know this, but as I said, he is a much better, maybe the top on the field, on the real field. We saw last year where the Chiefs barely won games. They barely scored 17 points a game. They won games with last-second field goals and miracles and everything else. I know he got better later in the season. But by then, if you had drafted him, and he's a guy, and I've got pretty high up in my rankings too, but someone's going to take this guy way too early. And if the same thing happens again, by the time he gets to the point where he's like last year when he's starting to do some things, you might be buried in the standings already. So I don't want anything to do with that. And his, Travis Kelce is, we mentioned this. He's almost ready to get his AARP, benefits, and he's going to. It's already happened. He's starting to slide it back a little bit, and he has not shown. Patrick Mahomes has not shown that he has any connections with these wide receivers, who they're just not meshing. And the guy that worthy is the speed guy. But I don't think that Patrick Mahomes can hit that ball down the field to be able to make him an effective weapon, first of all. And so I like him on the field. Him on the field makes the Chiefs Super Bowl worthy. But I don't think that he makes your fantasy team championship worthy.
Okay. Well, I wasn't expecting that, especially after all the Jalen Royals praise we had during our dynasty discussions.
Well, I like him. I like what he can bring, but we're talking about a rookie, so I'm not going to get carried away with that.
Yeah, this is intriguing. I've done all my prep. My Thursday show, we're previewing the AFC West, and we're talking NFL. We're not talking fantasy as well. And I look through these rosters, and we're doing make or break players and breakout players and all that kind of stuff. And I think that these receivers, they're going to be the difference, right? If all of a sudden they show up, Xavier Worthy is what they need him to be. If Hollywood Brown wakes up,
let's not put our eggs in his basket. Please don't do that.
If Jalen Royals is elite as a rookie, they made one change on the offensive line, I believe, with the draft pick and Josh Simmons. And that's if he's healthy, and then if he's not healthy, they signed Jalen Moore from San Francisco. That's what scares me the most for sure. And can Mahomes stay healthy is probably the biggest question mark, because if he gets hit like he got hit in the Super Bowl, he will not make it through an entire season for sure. Brian, your thoughts?
That's a really interesting pick, Kevin. I do think we kind of forget how many one-score games the Chiefs won last year. I think they were like 9-0 in one-score games.
Right, which means he's great on the field. No problem there.
He's great on the field. But he's also kind of shows, cracks in the Chiefs' armor. We think the Chiefs is, unstoppable dynasty. Patrick Mahomes is like the next face of the league. But let's be honest, there is a transition that's going to come for this offense soon. Travis Kelce, like we said, is aging and he's already declining. We've never seen Patrick Mahomes without, an elite Travis Kelce or a Tyreek Hill. He's got to basically make new connections with these receivers. And while I think he's good enough to do it, I can't see a growing period this season where that doesn't exactly lead to fantasy success.
Very true. All right. You got one more dud, excuse me. Brian, or no?
No, I did Williams and I had Fields as well.
That's right. So we had both of them go. Sorry, I was trying to kill some time as I was looking something up. You got a third one? No, just kidding. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Probably not. It's not going to matter. So that's studs and duds for this week. We're going to be continuing to talk through these studs and duds throughout the year to see how things shake out. Right now, ESPN has Mahomes as number 4. That's,
come on. No. If somebody in my league wants to take him that high, you be my guest. And we'll I'll take the studs that I talked about earlier.
There you go. All right, there you go. That's QB studs and duds for segment number 1. Let's head into segment number 2. We call it the cover 2. All right, this is where we cover the NFL news, and there wasn't a lot going on this week, and then all of a sudden,
boom,
this happened. The John Smith trade that had been talked about for ages happened, just not quite the way we thought it was going to. Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, and draft picks to the Steelers for Minkah Fitzpatrick and draft pick as well. I kind of feel like the Steelers won this trade. And I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is really good, but Brian, let's hear your thoughts on this trade between the Steelers and the Dolphins.
This is just such a weird trade from every aspect. Like, why is the Dolphins bringing back Minkah Fitzpatrick? You already had him to begin with.
Yeah.
Again, there's also the thing you got to worry about is Jalen Ramsey is kind of just the name at this point. Like,
sure,
he's a decent corner, but he's not the top cornerback in the league or the top 5 cornerback that he once was. And are you really comfortable bringing in Jalen Ramsey, who, is outspoken, a loudmouth, that kind of personality, when you already have Aaron Rodgers? Like, how are those two going to get around in that locker room? Mike Tomlin has his work come out for him, trying to keep this Steelers locker room together. And maybe this is just the bottoming out that I've been talking about, how they just need to full-blown collapse to have a clown show just so they can rebuild. But it's a weird move. It's a weird move. I've been racking my head and just cannot figure out why this happened.
This is the epitome of a one-year swing for Pittsburgh. It's either going to work or it is going to be ugly. Kevin, your thoughts on the trade?
Well, my first thought was Jonnu Smith going to Pittsburgh is going to, because I had Pat Freemuth on my bus, and at first I was like, well, that's going to deflate the tires on that. But then I realized that Arthur Smith is the tight end guru of all tight end gurus. So I think they're going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets, and a lot. Because what do they have at wide receiver besides one guy, Mr. Metcalf over there? And is Aaron Rodgers going to be able to push the ball down enough to make that effective? I don't think, that's going to be very, I don't like that. And but I think
a lot of 3 and outs.
well, that's where the 2 tight end sets come in. I think that's going to be effective for them. And as far as the defense, this is the 1 year, as you mentioned, swing, and this is all in for Pittsburgh. And because they've got a strong front 7, and they can bring in Jalen Ramsey first. For the Dolphins, they knew they had to move him, and who are they going to get back? They would maybe draft picks or just picks. We don't know, but so I think they did about as good as they could have done on this, and so this might work out on both sides a little. It doesn't, the statement about blowing your skirt up, this does not do that. And so we'll see what happens. The Steelers are being very unsteeler-like, if that's a word.
Right. Yeah.
And these moves right here, but as we mentioned about Aaron Rodgers, they backed themselves into a corner with this. And so we'll see. Maybe they won't win and have a new coach next year. So we'll see how that works out.
So I've got three things with it. First of all, if I'm a fantasy owner of Pat Freiermuth, I am cutting bait immediately. Yep. And the reason why is look at Arthur Smith in Tennessee, who was his tight end, Jonnu Smith. And Atlanta, who was his tight end, Jonnu Smith.
See, that's where I was starting to go a little bit.
Yep.
And so
I would be shocked if, honestly, I think Freiermuth gets moved because they drafted Washington from Georgia 2 years ago now in the third round, the massive tight end. They drafted him, so he's there also. I think Freiermuth's time in Pittsburgh is at an end. I think they get traded, gets moved for something. I don't know what for. But gets moved for something.
No idea, because it could be anything.
Right. So there's that. That was my first thought.
Well,
Second thought.
That was me being hopeful. Yeah. Like I said, he was on my bus.
Well, this is the time that we don't have to be hopeful. We haven't drafted yet, so we can just cut bait.
Okay.
You might want to let Pat off the bus. Like, this is
I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I have to pull over and, hey, please, exit
this
safely.
Is your stop, Pat.
Yeah, it wasn't what you planned on stopping, and I hope you get, some kind of a ride from here, but
bye.
Second thought is Jalen Ramsey. Okay, so they bring in Darius Slay this offseason as well. Now, I don't think Jalen Ramsey's at the point in his career where he's going to look up to vets because he is a vet. He's been around the block. He is what he is. But you pair him with Darius Slay. You got Joey Porter Jr. there that came in a couple years ago in the draft as well. I kind of go back to the same thing I said with Aaron Rodgers. If it's going to work anywhere, it's going to work here. And not saying that it will work, but Pittsburgh, between Mike Tomlin, Aaron Rodgers, and him being a veteran, a Hall of Fame voice, honestly, you've got some other guys on that defense. Cam Hayward specifically, that you got enough guys there that can say, I think, keep Jalen Ramsey in line enough unless things go south, unless they start losing football games. As long as they're winning football games, everything will be fine. But once they start losing, that'll be a problem. My third thing is this. If the Dolphins can get a starting safety out of Jalen Ramsey, how did Green Bay get nothing for Jair Alexander?
Ooh,
that's my question.
What a great point.
Well, I have to think about it because I'm a Packer fan.
Right.
And I'm sitting there going,
right, though. Like,
yeah. Isn't it Alexander's younger? Mm-hmm. Alexander, now he's had his injury issues, so you got to give him that. So Ramsey missed a whole season. But I just sit here and go, surely the Packers could have gotten something for Alexander versus nothing.
All they got for him was the playbook.
Yeah. Yeah, you could have at least gotten like a day 2 pick.
Right.
Like if that's what Ramsey's going to get, Alexander should at least get you a third.
Yes, I agree. Minkah Fitzpatrick back to the Dolphins, though. We kind of talked all that time on the Steelers. Obviously, it's a starting safety. I mean, I think
Von Holland replacement.
Well, he's a Pro Bowler, and he had problems with the previous Miami coaching staff, obviously, but they're long gone. And so we'll see how it goes. I think that he'll go down there. He'll probably like that down there better. Maybe. So.
Well, I mean, Miami, yeah, I'd more rather be in Miami than Pittsburgh.
Well,
no offense to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But there's a head coach now who's strongly on the hot seat down there in Miami. No question.
But you look at this. So in the offseason, they bring in Artie Burns from Seattle at the nose, playing that corner, nickel corner, stuff like that. And then they brought in Melifonwu from Detroit, the starting safety. So they got 2 new starting safeties in Fitzpatrick and Melifonwu. I know I'm saying that wrong, as well. And so the back end is I'm intrigued by it. They've got a cornerback named Storm Duck. They've got
what a great name. When I saw that, I was like, Storm Duck. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So
that was like a Looney Tunes character.
It does.
So cornerback is going to be the biggest question mark for sure there. But safety's locked down. They've got some good rushers and Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. Defensive line is solid as well. So as long as the corners can halfway cover, The defense looks good, and then it comes down to Tua, it comes down to Waddle and Hill, all that kind of stuff on the offensive side. That brings us, though, they trade out Jonnu Smith, and who do they get in return? They make a trade for Darren Waller. And when I saw this today on social media, I thought, is this like from what? So I'm looking at who did I see it posted from? It was Fox Sports, and I'm like, so it's real? And then say, sure enough, coming out of retirement, had his rights, everything like that. And Brian, I wanted to get your thoughts on it because the old Giants up there. I thought when Waller retired, I thought, man, did he screw over the Giants? He's had his issues with mental health and different things, and as well. And so you try to give him some long leash on that kind of stuff. But now that he's coming back, I don't know. What are your thoughts on Darren Waller?
So I didn't like Darren Waller. It's on the internet. It's on the 3010 YouTube. You can go back and watch the episodes. I liked when we got him because he was supposed to be. I thought it was Joe Shane being creative of, I'm not going to go out and get a big wide receiver for Daniel Jones, but I still can't get him a good target in Darren Waller, the top 5 tight end when healthy. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Then he kind of struggled, and then there was the whole, I'm going to retire, I'm not going to retire, and then not telling the team anything, which that was my biggest gripe with him. I'm like, you can take as long as you need to figure out what you're going to do. Just let the team know what you're planning. Just keep them in mind. Hey, because there was rumors that they had heard in months from Darren Waller. I'm like, this guy, he went AWOL. Like, no, you can't do that because we need a plan. We need to figure out, do we need to bring in a tight end? Do we not? Because are you going to come back? That was a big thing for me. But this is weird. I was not expecting Darren Waller back. I don't think he's definitely not the player he once was. I think this is going to be more just a name guy in Miami. It's going to be kind of like a fun trivia question one day, but it's not going to do anything.
They also brought in Pharaoh Brown from Seattle in the offseason at tight end. They have Julian Hill, Tanner Connor, Jalen Conyers, and Hayden Rucci all on the roster right now. Of course, this is pre-camp and all that good, or preseason, all that good stuff. So that'll trim down, obviously. But I don't know, Kevin, any thoughts on the Darren Waller return? Because that came out of nowhere.
Yes, it did. You talk about not blowing your skirt up. This is the biggest non-win scenario that I could come up with. You're telling me that all those guys you just mentioned are going to replace the player that just set the records for tight ends for a Miami team that has been around since the Don Shula days. And he set those records just last year. And so you're telling me that you're going to trade him out, and then you're going to bring in a guy who, A, hasn't played for a whole year, and when he was playing, this is not the Las Vegas Raiders, right? Guy. This is not him.
Mm-mm.
He declined every single year since he had that great season in was they still in Oakland when that happened? I don't even know.
Yeah,
Were they? I think they were.
Maybe it was the first year in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay, so but see, that's what I'm saying. That's long enough ago where we're not even sure where this happened. Okay, and you got to do better than this. How do you come away with something like this? And if you're Tua, you took away one of his biggest targets, one that he could rely on. You can't always rely on Hill. You can't always rely on Waddle because, getting hurt or whatever else. But he knew he could throw to Smith. He can't do that now.
Yeah.
So this is not working out in my mind at all.
ESPN currently, fantasy-wise, has Waller ranked 20th above Okonkwo, Gesicki, Zach Ertz, Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, Dalton Schultz, Noah Fant, Isaiah Likely.
We don't even know what shape this guy's in.
Right.
We at least saw everyone you just mentioned on the field last year. We saw what they could do. Darren Waller is a major question mark.
Yeah.
What if he's like Roberto Duran way back in the day, and he comes into camp and he's overweight and says no mas? Now what?
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if he speaks Spanish, so
I don't know that either. But he might want to learn those two words right there. No mas.
There you go. Well, we got tight end rankings. He will not be in my tight end rankings tomorrow.
You can be real sure. That's not going to happen.
We're gonna give a couple a week or two before Brian has to put out his tight end rankings. So we'll see what changes in those weeks for sure. All right, that's the cover 2 today. Let's head into the read option, our segment number 3. All right, gentlemen, for our read option this week, we've got 3 pairings for you to choose from, and I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts on them. Let's start at the quarterback position this week, and we're going to give you the option between Baker Mayfield or Bo Nix. And I'll preface it with saying I have been on the Baker train for many years now, really since his time in Tampa, I should say. As soon as he came to Tampa, I was on the Baker train then. And love him to death. Bo Nix had a phenomenal rookie season last year, far better than I expected him to have, and I'll be the first one to admit that. So today we're giving you the option, fantasy football option between Baker Mayfield and Bo Nix. Kevin Wilson, let's start it off with you.
Well, it's interesting that you picked these 2 guys because I have them ranked right next to each other. So that's right there. And so they both got excellent offenses to work with. I think that Tampa's is a little better than Denver's is. But I like the coach for Bo Nix better. And so this is really a hard, thing for me to come to a decision with. But I think that Tampa's offense is a little bit better. I like their receivers more than what Denver has. And so I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield. And then you don't have to worry about a second-year slide, as maybe you do with Bo Nix. So I'm going to stay with Baker Mayfield. I think that he's comfortable in that offense. I think he likes those guys. He's going to have another excellent season. So Baker Mayfield all the way for me.
All right, Brian, your thoughts.
So this was, like I said, this is a tough one. I'm torn between the 2. I think I'm going to go Bo Nix, and here's why. Mayfield put up a lot of his best numbers career-wise last season, and that was under OC Liam Cohen.
Yeah.
He's gone. He's in Jacksonville. He's going to try to fix Trevor Lawrence. We don't know what Chris Godwin's going to be this year. Mike Evans is getting up there in age, so could this be the year he might take a slip? There's a lot of question marks around the Buccaneers. While a good offense, it can't be a great offense, there's a lot of question marks, whereas I'm more likely to go with Bo Nix, who has a more stable coach, second year in the system, not learning something new, kind of has a big arm, younger. I'll go with Bo Nix.
All right, so I get to break the tie tonight. That's just great. Here's the way I look at it. A lot of changes in Tampa. You mentioned aging receivers, new offensive coordinator. You go out to Denver, consistency is there. Obviously, Bo Nix is hand-selected by Sean Payton to be his quarterback. But I look at it and I say, who has had to overcome adversity? Who has had to be doubted every single year? It seems like it's Baker Mayfield. And similarly, I got to be careful I say this, I would never bet against Tom Brady until he proved me otherwise. I'm going to go the same here with Baker Mayfield. Until he proves me otherwise, I'm going to side on the side of Baker Mayfield. I am worried about sophomore slump for Bo Nix. I look at the conferences. The West plays a really tough schedule this year. I believe they got the NFC East on their schedule as well. Yeah. And so you look at the defenses in the AFC West and the NFC East, and that worries me a little bit more, with a lot of tape, of course, now on Bo Nix as well. Baker Mayfield's in an easier division overall, and gets to play Carolina twice, those kinds of things, New Orleans twice, those kinds of things. And so that's the main reason. I do think they're close, hence the reason we put them together here as well. I think it's a very close one. I think you're looking at this is the one where you get to it and you go, okay, let's check out the bye weeks, make sure I got them in the right situation there. Okay, I'm going to go with this guy. I don't think there's a major gap between these two, but I like Baker Mayfield slightly more than Bo Nix as well. All right, let's go to running back now. 2 of my favorite guys, Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs. Of course, Jacobs didn't become one of my favorite guys until last season, and he came to Green Bay. But I do love him now. I liked him. He had a good year before he came to Green Bay, of course, as well. But Josh Jacobs in Green Bay, loaded offense as far as weapons goes. Jonathan Taylor, lots of question marks as far as quarterback goes, and coaching, even to I think to some degree as well. But both stud running backs, and I've been giving you guys grief for your Josh Jacob takes earlier in the year. So we'll see how you take this one. Brian, we'll let you kick us off here. Jonathan Taylor with the Colts or Josh Jacobs with the Packers?
So this was a tough one for me. Both have very similar track records. I believe both have 3,000-yard rushing seasons. Both have had injury issues in the past, but I think I'm going to lean Taylor slightly over Jacobs. He's the younger back, and I know there's questions with the Colts offense, but when you're in a questionable offense and you have a running back like Jonathan Taylor, he's going to be the center point of that offense. The offense is going to flow for him. He's going to be the primary back. He's going to be a receiving option because of how explosive he can be. He's the guy I think this Colts offense is going to run through. Whereas with Jacobs, he could get lost in all the targets in Green Bay.
All right, Kevin, your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to go the exact opposite direction here because I like, even with the passing, I like the Josh Jacobs modifies that a little bit. It evens things out. I like their offense better than I like the Colts offense. I like the coaching staff in Green Bay better than I like. We don't really know what's going to go on down there. I certainly like the quarterback better in Green Bay than I like, whoever, Daniel Jones or Richardson or whomever, because we kind of assume that Richardson may not play, but now he's saying he's going to be in camp. So whatever's going on with that. But so I like the situation that Jacobs is in. I think they're close again. But when you take in the team scenario around both of these guys and the age, because this is redraft once again, I'm going with Josh Jacobs here.
Okay, so to break the tie, I will. I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's my favorite running back in the league. The way I look at it is this: I think that Josh Jacobs is the safer pick. I think that that Taylor is the higher ceiling pick for fantasy owners. Jacobs, the one thing with the Packers offense is they drafted a guy last year that was hurt, didn't play, Marshawn Lloyd out of USC. He's healthy now, and LaFleur likes to give his running backs breaks. And it's frustrating as a Packer fan where you're sitting going, why is our stud not in? And he likes to have these subs and things like that too. And I think if Lloyd is healthy, which right now he is, I think that's going to cut in, not majorly into Jacobs' carries, but enough to say, okay, Taylor's going to be the workhorse. He's going to be the most explosive of the backs, although Jacobs is really explosive too. I like Taylor slightly more for fantasy reasons. And I really think Indianapolis is going to be fine if Daniel Jones is their quarterback. And by fine, I mean in the hunt for the division, which is still doesn't mean you're going to win more than 9 games. But I think they're going to be at least respectable this year with Daniel Jones at quarterback, and I think he beats out Anthony Richardson. So Jonathan Taylor, though, is a stud as long as he's healthy. So I'll go with him slightly over Josh Jacobs. All right, last one of this grouping is tight ends. We went same team on this one. Baltimore Ravens, Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely. So I've got my tight end rankings dropping tomorrow on the bellyupsports.com website. And so I'll tell you who I had ranked ahead of the other one in just a moment. But Kevin, we'll let you start us off. We've got Mark Andrews has been around, done that. We know what he is. Rough year last year till the end of the year. Isaiah Likely, the young gun, who when Andrews was hurt was amazing in Baltimore. So give me your thoughts on Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely.
Well, this is another interesting pick that you came up with right here. And this is not Dynasty, which would certainly answer that question. But in redraft, I'm still going to Isaiah Likely here. I think that he's the younger guy, but he's coming into his own. He's shown what he can do on the field when he was the only tight end there. I think he showed also what he can do when it's both him and Mark Andrews on the field. And I like the chemistry that he's got with Lamar Jackson. And so all the way, this could go either way right here, but I'm going to go with the younger guy because I think that Mark, he may not be, he's older. He may not be able to be injury free for a whole another season. And so I'm going with Isaiah Likely here.
Okay. Brian, your thoughts on the battle between these two tight ends, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely?
Yeah, I'm going with Isaiah Likely too, which I was really big on Mark Andrews last year. I was big on Mark Andrews majority of his career, but after seeing him struggle, I know he bounced back week 11 through 18, but the struggles were just too concerning. Too many alarm bells going off. They brought Likely in to be Andrews' replacement. Likely's had to basically prove it. Like, prove that you can be a tight end one. I think that comes this year. I think with Andrews' track record of struggling, if he gets off to another slow start, you're going to see Likely going for more and more plays, giving him more volume. And I could see by, Halloween, Isaiah Likely is the tight end one of the Baltimore Ravens.
I agree with you guys. I think that there was too much smoke about Andrews getting traded this offseason, and that just tells you everything you need to know. They were looking to see if they could unload him, get something good for him. He still has value, obviously, right now. I think Cincinnati, they're in the division, so they won't trade it to them, but Cincinnati should be all over Mark Andrews if they could. But yeah, Fantasy Pro says Mark Andrews is number 5 and Isaiah Likely is number 17.
Stop it.
And my rankings that come out tomorrow will not be like that.
No.
So they both kind of scare me. As long as they're on the same team, they both kind of scare me, because now it's like, well, one of them might go off one week and the other one go off the next week, and they are really good. So, I mean, are you going to lose because, you had the wrong one in, or whatever it may be. So I'm a little worried overall about the Baltimore tight end situation in fantasy, unless they end up trading Andrews.
I don't think you probably want either one of these guys in fantasy.
Especially not high.
No. And even if you're one of those that, if you miss out on the top guys and you're one of those that want to wait around for a tight end, this is not the way to do it.
No. They're like a nice waiver wire pickup if they have a good matchup that week. That's about it. That's where their value is. They're like high teens, maybe even like low 20s type in my rankings whenever I make them.
I like it. All right, guys, that is the read option. Great conversation. Feel free to leave a comment if you're tuning in on who you would take in these matchups.
Let's hear from you again, Nathan.
Yeah, right. Nate, you still there?
Let's not ask that question just in case he's not. All right, let's head into our final segment. We call it the Red Zone. All right, last week we dropped the Belly Up Sports cumulative top 30 PPR players in fantasy football. All of our rankings are going live on the bellyupsports.com website. We have the top 30 out. Brian has running backs out. Kevin has quarterbacks out. I have wide receivers out. Tomorrow, tight ends will go out as well. And that'll continue on over the next several weeks as we kind of rotate through positions, so you can see all of our rankings from there. But we did get the top 30. I don't know. Let's see here. Got to find them now. There they are. All right. So when you look at these top 30, again, we were all on board with Jamarr Chase. We were all in agreement on that one. He's number 1 overall. Then it gets a little spicy as far as who's number 2. I had Jahmyr Gibbs. Brian had Bijan Robinson. Kevin had Justin Jefferson. Now, I will say this. We pretty much were on board with the top guys in general, slightly different orders, right? Jamarr Chase, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, although Brian, I'm going to get your thoughts on this in just a second, had him down at number 7, and I had Justin Jefferson down at number 7. So we kind of flipped guys there. And then CeeDee Lamb, who Kevin had down at number 7. So let's go to these guys at 7 and get your thoughts on why it doesn't. I mean, they're still top 10, right? But Brian, give me your thoughts on Jahmyr Gibbs. You got him at number 7.
Yeah, I just have Jahmyr Gibbs at 7 because there's a lot of question marks surrounding him. He's already in a handcuff situation, so how many touchdowns is he going to get? Is the low touchdown number is going to hurt him? A brand new offense, not a brand new offense, but a change in direction, change in philosophy, that's definitely going to help. And basically the guys in front of him, I just thought were safer picks to kind of break out. Whereas I don't think Gibbs is going to have a bad season by any stretch, the imagination, right, but I can see a world where he kind of disappoints because he doesn't have, as many rushing numbers. And with Montgomery there, the touchdown numbers take hit as well.
Yeah, and Brian has him as a running back 3 right now behind Bijan Robinson and Saquon Barkley. So again, top 3 running backs. Not like you're
No.
busting his
If
balls
you
or
took
anything.
Saquon or Robinson over him, you're like, all
Yeah.
right, that's fine.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, you've got CD Lamb down at number 7. Brian's got him at 3. I've got him at 4. I'm curious to get your thoughts on why you have him down at that point.
Well, I have him down there for 2 reasons. One is you talked about Dak. I'm not nearly as on board as you were talking about him with the injury history, what's going on with the offensive line, and is Pickens going to be able to be anything other than what we've seen before? And so, but the second reason and the biggest reason is because as we talked about it, was it a couple weeks ago about Malik Neighbors? I am absolutely on board. I think I like him better than CD Lamb. So I've got him. I've moved him up in my rankings because of that, and I've got him over CD Lamb. And he's younger, and everything else that had, we don't. The Giants, and Brian, you know more about this than I do, but I think the quarterback Russell Wilson's going to bring out the best in him. I like Malik Neighbors, and this I think reflects that feeling right here.
Yeah, you've got him at wide receiver 4 behind Chase, Jefferson, and Neighbors there as well. And then I've got Justin Jefferson as my wide receiver 4. I've got him at number 7 on my list. And the reason why is JJ McCarthy. I just don't trust the kid. And until he proves me wrong, Jefferson's going to get his points. He's an elite wide receiver. But it scares me to death to have Justin Jefferson. I've got him in a keeper league, and I'm terrified. So we'll see how things go from there. I'm going to look at a few other guys that we had ranked differently, and maybe even a couple that we had very similarly. Actually, we all had Devon Achane very similarly ranked. So myself and Brian had him at 14, Kevin at 15. He ends up on the top 30 list at number 14, running back 5. And I just find it interesting because I sit there, I have Achane above Taylor, above Jacobs. And so, I even have him above Henry. So I struggle with that because I'm not a huge Tua guy. Dolphins kind of scare me a little bit, yet Achane has just been doing his business, right? So we all had him in that same spot. What's your confidence level with Devon Achane, Kevin?
The health obviously is the concern here with him and Tua and overall, but when healthy, he has demonstrated that he could be possibly maybe the best running back there is. I know that's a very heavy statement, but when he's healthy, he can put up 160 yards. He can catch passes. He can have 3 touchdowns. And because of that level of production that he can produce is why I have him ranked where I do. But there is a certain concern, and I would have had him ranked higher because I'm going into last year. I had him much higher than this, but that injury thing and everything with Tua and all that made me put him outside the top 10.
All right, Brian, confidence level with Achane.
I'm fairly confident with Achane. As long as he stays healthy, which I don't think will be as big as concern with him. I think he's fine. I think he'll get his touches, his volume, especially if Miami's receivers kind of underperform like I think they will. Like, I don't trust Tyreek Hill at his age. Waddle, you can never count on for full 17. That's going to force Miami to run the ball more. There's Achane's touches, his volume, his touchdowns. Give me Achane.
I like it. We had major discrepancy with Christian McCaffrey. I had him at 25. Kevin had him at 21. Brian, you had him at 11. So I'm going to let you give us a speech for why we should trust Christian McCaffrey again this season at number 11.
Look, if it's dynasty, you stay as far away from Christian McCaffrey as possible. But he did have the same surgery that George Kittle did. I forgot what the injury was, but we saw what Kittle did last year. Complete bounce back year. Stayed relatively healthy for the entire year. I think a similar story happening with McCaffrey. I think you get one more, maybe 1.5 more good seasons out of him. I think he will be a big surprise and a big jump this year for Christian McCaffrey.
All right. I drafted McCaffrey at number 1 overall a few years ago, and it worked out perfectly. The next year, I think my dad picked him at number 1, and it was horrendous. So those kind of players, I feel like there's so many things out there right now. I'm gonna hold tight with. I'm gonna pass on Christian McCaffrey unless it's just a steal of a pick. I'm gonna pass on Christian McCaffrey more than likely and try to get my running backs elsewhere at the very least. And I want to talk quarterbacks real quick too, because Jaden Daniels, me and Kevin both had him in our top 30. I had him at 22, Kevin at 27. We all had Lamar Jackson in the very similar spots, 24, 27, 24. He ended up 26 overall on our cumulative rankings. But Jaden Daniels, Brian, you had him outside of your top 30. So give us your thoughts. I know we've talked about Dynasty. Obviously, we love him in Dynasty. What's scaring you, or is it just a quarterback thing?
It's a quarterback thing.
Okay.
It's so what scares me, and it should scare me with every sophomore quarterback, is going to go to I said Bo Nix, but there is always the sophomore slump, especially with how big and how deep of a run they made last year. You could get like, well, they're overhyping him. There's going to be some regression. That's here or there. But quarterback is such a deep position now that you could spend your roster spots everywhere and really wait on that quarterback. Like, I think you could wait for a guy like Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Drake May, and you will get solid, 15 to 18 points a week, and you can, be fine with that. So I don't think you need to reach for a quarterback like you have in the past. I think you can wait till as late as round 10 and get a really solid quarterback for your roster.
Kevin, your thoughts on why we should have Jaden in the top 30?
Well, I think that because of his coach, for one, is the perfect match for him. So I think that's going to prevent such a drastic sophomore slump that we've seen from some of these other guys. And I think that he could even be better. And I certainly thought about the same thing as you, Brian, that you don't want to take a quarterback early. I know it's easy to say, but just about every single redraft I'm in, about the third round, then these quarterbacks start going off the board and people start panicking, which is fine.
You're right.
Which is fine. And but I put him here because if he happens to slide just a little bit, I might make an exception and go and get this guy because I like his talent, I like his rushing, I like what he can, his offense, I like the coach, and so there's a better than normal chance that I could see myself taking a quarterback in the third. And if I was to do that, it would be him.
Yeah, I think, I feel like every year during our fantasy football draft, I get a text from my dad. Oh, here comes the run on whatever, run on receivers or run on tight ends or run on. And you're in those leagues where, one quarterback goes and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, I got to get my quarterback. And you're like, well, all right, I guess I'm going to get running back here instead, whatever it may be. For sure. I like that. Let's talk about guys that we had in the top 30 but didn't make it in the cumulative top 30. Let's see here. We'll start with Brian. Brian, you had Tyreek Hill ranked at 28 on your rankings. Me and Kevin did not have him high enough to make it into the cumulative 30. So thoughts on Tyreek Hill? We kind of talked about him a little bit already.
Yeah, like I said, I'm expecting regression for Tyreek Hill. In the past, he's been arguably a top 10 to 15 fantasy player. I think the regression, but I'm not willing to completely jump off his ship yet because we've seen how good he's been in the past. At Miami, he's been their dynamic wide receiver one. He's put up, crazy amounts of fantasy points. So while I think regression's coming and it will come this season, it's not going to be this dramatic drop. It's going to be more of a steady, gradual decline. You can still get some good value out of him, especially early on in the season.
All right, very good. Kevin, let's see here. You had, I got to find it. I lost it. There it is. Mike Evans at 29, and he almost snuck into our top 30, did not quite make it because of that. So your thoughts on Evans?
Well, that goes back to who his quarterback is, and he's battled, some things, but I think that he is going to have, redraft once again, dynasty. We're not talking about that here, but redraft, I think that he can bounce back. I think that because when you look at him, he wants to play. I think he's going to play, and he's going to be able to put, for at least this year, put that injury past behind him and put together a very, very good year. And Baker Mayfield, he's a perfect quarterback for him. And so I like him because of that.
I think he's going to be more touchdown dependent this year than he has been in the past, fantasy wise, because they have the depth now where they don't have to have him out there every single down. So you're going to see him more, I think, possessionally and red zone. So as long as he gets his touchdowns, you're still going to get some good points out of him. I'm afraid, though, if he doesn't get the touchdowns, which was probably with any player, I guess, that'd be my only concern there. I had two guys that you guys didn't agree with me on. Chase Brown, I had at 29, and Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm just really high on these two Arizona guys. Trey McBride, of course, we all are high on him at tight end. And Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he's going to have a massive step up his sophomore year. So I had him at number 30, just inside there. And then Chase Brown, running back one in Cincinnati. You look at that offense, you got to expect something good to come from it. So those are my thoughts on those guys as well. Again, you can check out bellyupsports.com right now. You have the top 30 is live. You have Brian's running backs, Kevin's quarterbacks, my wide receivers, and we got some tight ends coming as well. All right, guys, let's talk about the content we've got going. We have the content I just mentioned, but the other content we got going this week. Brian, we'll let you kick us off on what you got going on this week.
Yeah, so we had a bunch of bunch of hockey stuff going on. We had the draft on Friday. We had free agency that opened up today at noon. So a bunch of articles for fans on there. You can find those on Twitter. Me and Nate are taking off this week from 3rd and 10. We'll be back next Tuesday. I'm not sure exactly what we're doing yet, but I believe we're going to do some NFL division previews. I just don't know which one yet. That's for Nate to decide, not me. He just tells me, and I go from there. And other than that, yeah, you can find all my writing at BrianPG1016 on Twitter.
There you go. And you can find him on the 3rd and 10 football, or not football podcast. He's going to do more than football. 3rd and 10
it's
podcast.
Yeah.
As well. Kevin Wilson, what you got going on this week?
Well, what I have going on this week, first of all, on Thursday, the Seahawk clan, Dan and Dustin and I are going to get together and we're going to discuss some things about the Seahawks offseason, what we think about what's going to be going on during the preseason and the season. That comes out on Thursday. On Saturday mornings, no credential required. I will be on with them again talking baseball. And, of course, you and I on Sunday night, presumably, that's what we'll be talking about with our fantasy baseball show. And you can always find me on Twitter at Kevin62WILSEA, on Reddit. And so if you want to see some interesting comments, just go over there and check out who and what's commenting about myself. It's always interesting. So check that out.
I love it. So this week, me and my dad are doing our show Friday morning. So we're going to at 10 or 11 o'clock on Friday morning. We're going to go live to talk football. We are breaking down the AFC West. Last week, we looked at the NFC East. So you can go check that out on the Sports Stove Football Show podcast or on the Belly Up Sports YouTube channel. As well, as Kevin said, Sunday night, we're talking fantasy baseball. Next Tuesday night, we're right back here talking more fantasy football as well. You can follow me online at Sports Stove on Twitter and Instagram as well. And make sure you stay up on these rankings. They will be coming out hot and heavy now over the next couple of weeks. So check those out, and always feel free to comment your thoughts and opinions. We'd love to hear them as well. And I promise, going forward, I will spell Malik Neighbors' name correct, as I misspelled that on the top 30. So we get that corrected. Hey, I got a C+ in spelling, so bear with me.
As long as you don't ask me about anything about math, I'm good to go, pretty much.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, sure appreciate you here. Appreciate all those who have tuned in tonight to the Belly Up Fantasy Live Football Show on the Belly Up Sports Network as we continue to get you ready for your fantasy drafts. Thanks for tuning in, and have yourself a wonderful 4th of July.
That's right.
And
be safe.
JPP it. Keep
That's
all your
right.
fingers this
Absolutely.
weekend. Have a good week, folks.
That's right.